Hello, this is Miss Harris here to talk to you about fractions as decimals, your 10 and 100 skills. Let's take a look. Change fractions to decimals. So first off, you should know or need to know that all numbers, all whole numbers, have a decimal point in it. And when you do not see it, it is located at the end of the number. So kind of like money. If I have $4, I can say that with just the dollar sign and the number 4. Or I can say $4 and put my decimal point at the end and put 00 to show you that I have no cents. Whole numbers work the same way. You can say just the number 10, just the number 15, or you can show that you have no decimal amounts or fractional amounts after that decimal point by putting your decimal point and putting 00 at the end. Everything behind the decimal point is fractional. So if you look at the picture below, you have the ones, which represents your whole numbers, and that's ones, tens, hundreds, and so on, are all located in front of the decimal point. Okay? And then your fractional amounts, which means I continue to get smaller than ones, goes behind the decimal point. So we have a picture of a dime because the first fractional place value is called tenths. Okay, so all fractions, you're trying to equal to a whole. You have a piece of a whole. When you're dealing with money, we know that the whole that we're trying to equal to when it comes to change or coins is a dollar. So we know that it's going to take 10 dimes, because dimes are worth 10 cents. Takes 10 dimes to equal to a whole dollar. So therefore, this first place behind the decimal point is going to be called your tenths, because it takes 10 dimes to make a dollar. And then the second place behind your decimal point, as you can see, we have a picture of a penny. We know that it takes 100 pennies to make $1. So therefore, your second place value behind the decimal point, or your fractional amount, is called the hundredths place. Notice the th at the end. If it did not have a th, you would have tens, which is part of your whole numbers, and hundreds, which is part of your whole numbers. But your fractional has that th on the end, just like the fractions you're used to talking about, like sixths and fourths, thirds, halves. Okay, so that th at the end. All right, then it says the numerator, the fractions that we're going to look at, your denominator has a 10 or 100, because those are the fractional place value amounts that we're discussing. So your numerator is going to be the number, the actual number that you're trying to place the decimal point in or turn into a decimal. Okay, the zeros that are in the denominator, again, you're going to have a 10 or you're going to have 100. Those zeros are going to help you figure out where that number needs to go. It lets you know how far behind the decimal point you should be. So we're talking about tenths. That means I have 1/10, and we're talking about hundreds, meaning I have 1 over 100. So we know tenths, the number 10, has 1 0. Therefore, where am I? I am one place behind the decimal point. The number 100, I have 2 zeros. So where am I? I am 2 places behind the decimal point. So that's the shortcut that's going to help us. And then the last digit of the number should be sitting in the spot where those zeros help you figure out where to go. If there is no whole number, then you should have a 0 in front of the decimal point. That's just like saying I have 50 cents, but I don't have any dollars. So I would have a 0, then my decimal point, and then the number 50. All right, so let's take a look. Remember, you can press pause, try it yourself, and check your work. If you need to, copy down the chart that you see below on your scratch paper that you should have out beside you. You can copy that chart on your paper, and that way you can have something to write your numbers in as you go. Okay, so 8/10. First of all, I don't have a whole number, So, I'm sorry. No, first what I need you to do is put your decimal point on your paper. That's the first step. Okay? Now, I don't have a whole number. So, in front of the decimal, I can put a 0 because there are no whole numbers. Whole numbers are located in front. Okay? Now I look at the denominator. I have the number 10. I have 1 0. So when I go over here to my chart, that 1 0 tells me I should be one place behind the decimal point. So the decimal point is here, and I go one place, I'm in the 10th spot. So my 8, that is the number that we're trying to place. Whatever your numerator is. Remember, the numerator is the number on top. That is the number I'm trying to place in the correct spot. So 1 0, I need to move one place behind. If you need to, you can draw blanks on your paper like this so that you can see the actual, when we say what place or spot it should be sitting in. So 1 spot or place behind, and my 8 is here. So my decimal is 0.8. But the correct way to read that is the same way you read the fraction. Our fraction was 8/10. When I read it as a decimal, it is still 8, the number 8. And what place is it in? The 10th place. So 8/10. Another way that you can write this, and it means this, well, you would read it a little different, but another way you can write it, you can show your 0. Like I said about money, when we deal with decimal points or decimal numbers, you can show the 0 at the end, or you can drop it. Okay? The next one, how do I read that fraction? Good, 3/10. Okay? First, on my paper, I need to put my decimal point, show my decimal point. Look and see if I have any whole numbers. I do not, so we put a 0 in front of the decimal point. Now I'm looking at my denominator. We have how many zeros? Just 1, which means when I look at my chart, my decimal point is here, and I only need to move what? 1 space. Okay, so when I move in one place, I have the 10th place. You can draw your 2 blanks. In 5th grade, you'll have 3 blanks when you try to do this. But for 4th grade, you just have your tenths and your hundreds. All right, what number am I trying to place? Whatever the numerator is. All right, so you told me to move over 1 place because we have 1 0. So I will put my number 3. How do I read it? Same way you read that fraction. 3/10. You say the number and the place that the last digit is sitting in. Okay? And what's another way that I can write this? Again, with decimal points or decimal numbers, you can either drop your 0 at the end or you can show it. But both of these are the same. But I would read this as 30 hundredths because I see the number 30 on this one. But they have the same value. Okay? Next, again, remember to press pause. Try it yourself on your paper and press play to check it. Do not just watch. Remember, math, you get better by doing it. 9/10. We read that one 9/10. Step 1, put your decimal point on your paper. Step 2, check and see if you have a whole number. We do not, so we put 0. Step 3, check your denominator. There is 1 0, so we're moving how many places? Good, just 1. So draw your places so you can see. And I'm moving 1 place. What number are we putting in the blank? Your numerator is 9. So 0.9, or the correct way to read it, just like that fraction, 9/10. What's another way you could write it? Good. Show that 0 at the end, or you can drop it. They are the same. They have the same value. All right, next. Again, first we're going to put our decimal point on our paper. You can go ahead and draw your 2 blanks. All right, now check my whole number. I do have a whole number this time. Remember, this is a mixed number. Mixed numbers are made of fractions and whole numbers. Okay, so my whole number is 3. That means I need to put 3 in front of the decimal point. because that's like saying that you have $3 this time instead of just coins or change. All right, check my denominator. I have 1 0. That means we're moving what? One place. You start on the decimal point and you move over one time. What goes in the decimal point? I'm sorry, what goes in the blank is your numerator. My numerator is 4. The way we read this is the same way you read that mixed number. 3 and 4/10. 3 and 4/10. What's another way we can write it? Put your decimal point, show your whole number in front. Your 4 is sitting in the 10th spot, and I could show my 0. Okay? Next, step 1, decimal point on your paper. Step 2, draw your blanks. Well, I'm going to pause right there. I want to go up here first. Sorry. All right, so let's do 1500ths. Okay, so again, you're reading that as 1500ths. All right, so again, step 1, put your decimal point on your paper. Step 2, draw your 2 blanks. Check and see if you have a whole number. There is not one on this one, so we put a 0. Now this time, when I look down at the denominator, I have 2 zeros. So what does that mean? Exactly. This time we're moving 2 places. So I'm going to erase this so we can see that better. Alright, so my decimal point is here. This time I'm moving 2 places because I have 2 zeros. And I'm trying to get to the hundredths place. How far away is the hundredths place from the decimal point? 1, 2. Which is why we look at the zeros to help us remember where to go. Okay, what number do I have? I have the number 15. All right, now, because it's a 2-digit number, I look at the last digit. Okay, the last digit in the number is 5. So I need to make sure 5 is sitting 2 places away from the decimal point. So put your pencil on your decimal point and count. 1, 2. The last digit should be sitting in the 2nd place, and then I just write my 1. So there you have, read it the same way you read that fraction, 1500ths. Okay? Let's try a 1 digit, because that should have been an example. I apologize. So let's say I have 500ths. Again, my decimal point goes on my paper first. My 2 blanks, then I check to see if I have a whole number. I do not, so we got 0. Again, I look down at my denominator. I see 2 zeros, so that means I'm moving how many places? 2. So start on your decimal point. 1, 2. Okay, so here we have the decimal point and 1, 2. So the number we have this time is just a 5. Okay, what happens is it's a 1-digit number, just like other things we've talked about concerning place value. We fill in empty places with a 0. So the same way you read the fraction, you read the decimal. 500ths. Try another one like that before we go back to the examples at the top. Let's say we have 800ths. Again, first step, put your decimal point on your paper. Draw your 2 blanks. My number, I do not have a whole number, so I can put 0 in front. All your whole numbers go in front of the decimal. My number, my numerator, I have an 8. Okay, so that means I look down at my denominator. I got 2 zeros, so that means I should be how far behind the decimal? 2 places. The zeros are your friends. Pay attention to the zeros in your denominator. So 1 and 2. My number is 8. That means 8 should be 2 places behind. I have an empty spot because 8 is just 1 digit. So we fill in empty places with a 0. Again, this 100, I have some people making that mistake. This 100 in your denominator, that does not tell you how many zeros to put. That tells you how far you need to move. how far to move behind the decimal. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the top. We have 4800s. Well, try one more single digit by yourself. Let's see. Try that one on your paper. Press pause. And here is the answer you should have. Sorry, that you should have gotten. Okay. All right, back to the top. 4800s. Put my decimal point on my paper. My 2 blanks. I do not have a whole number, so I put a 0. Check my denominator. There are 2 zeros, so I should be moving 2 places. Start on your decimal point, and you're going to go 1. Remember, do not count until you actually move. And 2. The last digit in my number should be sitting in that spot that I said to move. So you said move 2 places. My last digit is an 8. So that 8 needs to be 2 places behind the decimal. And then you see that you have another digit in your number. And you just sit it right there. And again, you read it the same way. 4800s. Look at the next one. Decimal point on your paper. Draw your 2 blanks. There's no whole number. Put a 0. Check your denominator. I got 2 zeros. That means I'm moving 2 places. Start on your decimal point. Count 1 and 2. That last digit should be sitting in the second spot. So I put my 2 and then I let my 8 sit in that place. 8200s. Alright, now let's go back to the bottom. So this time I look at my mixed number. I have a whole number. Again, whole numbers go where? In front of the decimal point, just like dollars in your money. And then my fraction, I have the number 15. Check my denominator. I have 2 zeros. That means we're moving how many places? 2 places. So I count starting with my decimal at the decimal point. 1, 2. So my last digit of my number should be sitting in that second spot. So my 5 goes here and 1 sits here. Again, you read it the same way that you would read that mixed number. 2 and 1500s. When you see a decimal point, you say and. Alright, so over here we have, well, if you notice, improper fractions. So you know from previous lessons that improper fraction is the same thing as saying that you have more than one whole, right? So same steps. So this just lets you know that when you see an improper fraction and you're trying to change it to a decimal point, that you should have something sitting in the spot of your whole number because your fraction is greater than 1. Now, if you wanted to do the steps and subtract out the denominator and see how much you got left and what that actual whole number, you can work it that way, but I'm just going to give you the shortcut version. So 17, again, put my 2 blanks, sorry. Alright, I look at my denominator, check my denominator, and there's 1 0, okay? Which means I need to be how many places? Just 1. Now, again, I have more than 1 digit in my numerator. So I'm trying to place the last digit in the number where I said it should be. So my 7 needs to be in the last, my 7 needs to be 1 place from the decimal point. So 7 goes here. Now, my 1, because the number is 17, not 7, my 1 does not disappear. What it does, I let it fall so that I can still see a 17. So 1 becomes my whole number because, again, I'm looking at an improper fraction. Improper fraction means your top is bigger than your bottom. Okay? So that's the shortcut so that you won't have to do 17 minus 10 and then see what that leave you with, and then from there and those steps, okay? The last digit goes in the place that you say you need to go. All right, try the next one. Again, your decimal point on your paper first. Draw your 2 blanks. Now check your denominator. I see 1 0. I have an improper fraction. 1 0 means I'm moving how many places? Just 1. Start at your decimal point and go 1. Look at your number. The last digit should be sitting in that place that you said you need to move to. So my 6 goes here. And that 2 does not disappear, so it just falls in right beside it. The way you read it, 2 and 6/10. Okay? Because I still wanted my denominator to be tenths. Try the next one. Remember to press pause, try it yourself, and press play. Decimal point on your paper first, 2 blanks. Check the denominator. I got 1 0, so that means what? Move in 1 place. Start at the decimal point and go 1. Look at your number. I got more than 1 digit, so that last digit needs to be sitting in my 1 place that I said I need to go to. So that's a 7. And that 3 does not disappear. You just let it sit right beside it in front of that decimal. You can't squeeze it in here. There's no blank there, okay? It goes over here in your whole number. All right, let's try with 100. So I have an improper fraction. 231 hundredths is improper. Again, so you could do the subtraction and see what that whole number actually is if you wanted to do that way. But again, I'm showing you the shortcut. Draw my 2 blanks. For 4th grade, it'll always be 2 blanks. Get to 5th grade, there'll be 3. Alright, so I got, check my denominator, 2 zeros. What does that tell us? That we're trying to move over to the hundredths place. And how far away is it? 2 places. So I start on my decimal point and I go 1 and 2. I have the number 231. Again, the last digit needs to be sitting in the correct spot. So you said go 2 places behind the decimal point. I'm going to put my 1 right there with where I said 1 and 2. Your other digits just fall in place. There was a 3. And then I can, again, do not squeeze a number right here. Nothing goes here. Put it on the other side of the decimal for your whole number. So the way we read this, 2 and 31 hundredths, because my last digit is in the hundredths place. All right, the next one, remember, press pause, try it by yourself. Decimal point, 2 blanks. Check my denominator, 2 zeros. That means I'm moving 2 places. When I get ready to write my number, if I got more than 1 digit, I'm looking at the last digit. 5 should be 2 places away. So I go back here and put my 5, let my other digits fall in spot, and my 1 falls here. So I actually have 1 as a whole number. How do we read it? 1, when you get to the decimal point, say and. Say the number that you see at the back, 25, and the last digit is sitting in the hundredths place. So 1 and 25 hundredths. All right, last problem. Hopefully by now you on a roll. Step 1, put your decimal point, draw your 2 blanks, check the denominator. It is an improper fraction, so I'm not just going to put 0 right here. Even though I don't see a whole number, I can see that this is an improper fraction, which means there is a whole number in there somewhere. All right, 2 zeros, what does that mean? 2 places, 1 and 2. Circle your number. What digit am I focusing on? The last digit. So the 5 should be 2 places away. 5, what came next was a 3, and then what came next was a 4. So your decimal number should be 4 and 35 hundredths. A lot of info, but I hope I made it as simple as possible. Keep replaying and going back over it and practicing until you get it. All right, I hope it was helpful. Thank you. See you next time.